Good evening, everyone. Call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. In accordance with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, signed by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, this meeting of the North Reading School Committee is being conducted with some remote participation. While in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted and a quorum of the school committee will be in person, this meeting is concurrently being presented through Google Meet and by a live broadcast by NORCAM to allow the public and any school committee members who cannot attend to participate. For the record, I will say that all 5 school committee members are here in person. We also have our superintendent, Dr. Daly, here as well. So welcome, everybody, and the assistant superintendent is on the Google Meet. So we begin with public input. If anybody has anything they would like to say from the public, I will pause to hear any comments. You can raise your hand, you can unmute. Okay, hearing none. We go to the student report. We have...
Actually, I'd like to say something.
Sure, go ahead. Who is this?
Hello, this is Drew DePatty.
Could-
On 6th Plymouth Street, North Reading. How's everyone this evening?
Thank you, Drew. Go ahead.
I just have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. One is the mask mandate, and more importantly, how to potentially deal with issues similar to this going forward. In other words, a potentially controversial issue that's taken down by the state government, by unelected officials. How, first of all, does anybody see that as a risk in terms of mandates coming down that may be controversial, that may not have a lot of community support, obviously don't have a vote by a local school committee? So it's like a two-part question.
Do you support the current mask mandate that I believe is in effect for another month or so? And number 2, are there ways that we can deal with these mandates going forward that are controversial, that may not have community support?
Thank you, Drew. Well, I will comment, but I'll clarify. For public comment, just to be on the record, nobody has to officially respond to this. What I would just say, though, is the North Reading School Committee has not issued a mask mandate, as you understand. You know, the only time that we have just followed the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as to how to deal with something that comes from DESE. I mean, I think various members have, at times reached out to DESE and issued their thoughts, but you're right. I mean, if the state regulation makes a comment or does something, we don't have that much authority over it. A few years ago, when I was starting to come to school committee meetings, the issue that came up quite a bit was testing. It was a similar thing that was imposed by the state, and there was a lot of questions about it, and there was some advocacy done at the state level to talk about it, but I don't know that the voices were heard or not heard. But, I mean, ultimately, we do have to follow the mandates from the state government, whether we agree with them or not. In August, we had a meeting when all that DESE was requiring was that if you were not vaccinated, or actually it wasn't that, it just said if you're not vaccinated, you were strongly recommended to wear a mask, and we did not issue anything broader than that at that time. And then the mandate changed from DESE. And so that's about all I can say. I think this school committee, while a lot of school committees have issued their own mask mandates above and beyond what the state was requiring at different times, we have not. We have just, followed along with the requirements that we are required to do. And that's my only comments. I don't know if anybody else has other thoughts.
Well said.
Okay.
That's right.
But yeah, so at this point in time, I mean, I understand the concern, but I don't know how to change what happens at the state level. I know when I was running for school committee, this was a big issue about the testing, because there was 2 different tests they were talking about, and it was challenging to try to figure that out. But ultimately, I mean, I would not be in favor of not complying with a regulation, and I think right now, I think we're, it was supposed to expire in January, and it's been pushed back to the end of February, but I don't know what'll happen beyond that, but I don't know that necessarily it'll be pushed back anymore, but that's where we're at right now. Mr. Evans, sure, Drew.
maybe not just in Massachusetts, but across the country, where there's sort of a battle between local control and state control. And, you know, you can go from state to state where a governor issues a mandate where it's too restrictive, and then to the state where it's not restrictive enough. In either one, you have potentially local school boards suing the state government to try to wrestle back control over their school system. And I didn't know if the school committee or department was ready, you know, for the right issue. I'm not necessarily saying the mask mandate is any sort of issue we need to go to that type of battle on, but is the school committee prepared to get into start to wrestle control back via legal means?
Well, I mean, again, my only comment here would be that I think right now the town of North Reading is already in a lawsuit over the school building project, which has been a very, very long and very expensive process. So I don't think that I would be, you know, I mean, again, we obviously can do whatever we want in the future, but I don't think there's been any discussion at any of our meetings about trying to bring any litigation here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say.
Rich, go ahead.
I would just say that, you know, I don't know that it does much good to think about hypotheticals. Can you come up with a scenario that I would be strongly against following a state regulation? Sure, I can come up with that scenario, but it's a, you know, kind of pointless in that it's a hypothetical, and the scenarios that I would come up with are probably somewhat unlikely to occur. So, you know, I would say that, you know, I don't know that there's any value in talking about that in terms of, are we prepared to go against any particular mandate that we decide is above and beyond, you know, what we think should happen? I would never want to respond to that in a general sense.
Well, pardon me, but I actually do think it's actually critical to talk about overall philosophy and how we lead and manage our school system, and who actually controls it, how the community gets input, who are the elected officials who actually make decisions that affect our kids, how are they held accountable? You know, to me, it's just not merely talking about the hypotheticals. To me, this is real philosophy. How are we going to live together in this community? How are we going to raise our kids? And whose laws and mandates are we following? To me, I think it's actually a critical thing that I'm bringing up.
Okay. Thank you for the comment. Mr. Evans? Oh,
No,
Diana wants to talk too? Okay,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, Drew, to answer your question, I don't think there's like collective enough movement within the committee to go against the state. As much as I would love to do that and have, you know, a movement to do that and have the funds behind it and all of that, I think that I'm most hopeful from like a practical standpoint at this point that in February we'll move back to the optional masking, because I think if you see what COVID is doing now, I think it's peaking and coming down, and that's what I'm hopeful for. And so, you know, if that doesn't happen in February, I think that there'll be many parents, among me included, that will be really disappointed that the masks aren't off our kids yet. And so I'm really hopeful that that happens, and if it doesn't, I think we have a conversation to be had.
Can I just give an update?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Dillon.
No, I've said this, I've received several phone calls from parents this week, and I did put out some information about this.
No, just turn it all the way down.
The Department of Ed absolutely, in my opinion, was leaning towards removing the masks in January. And I know that many have said or felt that they're kicking the can down the road and it's never going to end. I sat through several meetings in late December where they gave us presentations about masks that very much are some of the arguments against masking that I've been hearing from many people for a while. I really think they were prepared. I think if they were just going to kick the can down the road, they would have done that in December. They would have done it late. They waited until very late in January, and I think it was impossible to do it with the numbers where they were. They did change, and a parent had written to me today and helped me to identify that there was a discrepancy between the attestation we have to sign for the 80% threshold that still exists right now and the letter. So essentially, for the first time with this most recent extension, they changed the language to go back to the optional language, which is something I've been advocating for every time. When they take it off not to tie it to the vaccination. That was done as an incentive. People have now had that opportunity. It was done as an extension so that the elementary students or the 12 to 15, those students who weren't able to have an opportunity have had it. And so at this point, to start to uncouple that, so hopefully what we're seeing with the 80% numbers, it's a good indicator that you may see that now with the February as well. So I know that was a concern many people had, was even if you have it lifted, it's still going to be for the unvaccinated required, and that language for the first time in that letter was changed.
I saw that, and then the other thing that makes me hopeful is that they could very well have said, we're doing it through the end of the year. I was almost expecting it, like, go ahead and just say the mask requirements through the end of the year, and they didn't. They kicked it down a month, and that gives me hope that there is a reason that is coming into play here. So I think that my tolerance is getting a little bit thin. I'm pretty quiet about it, although my feelings, but at the end of the day, like, I'm hopeful in February that this is gonna change. I really am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Evans, I know you had your hand up. Would you like to?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my concern.
Eric, can you say your name and address first for the record?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Eric Evans, 3 Sandra Lane, North Reading. Would be, if there was an issue, like Drew had mentioned, let's say that, the DESE says we want to do genetic testing in all the schools. And let's say, for our community, we don't really, want to respond to that. Like, what if we just said no to DESE? Like, what are the ramifications? Are we prepared to, when the next thing comes around, and if it doesn't fit the needs of the community, where do we say no? Or how do we say no? And what are the repercussions? Can we say no? That's where my concern is.
I mean, I will just say there's a number of different levels of ramifications. I mean, there's funding issues, there's liability that we create, there's potential issues with the unions that we've negotiated with. So there are a variety of potential issues and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm well versed in it. We would, obviously want to talk to our legal counsel if we got to that point, and we'd have to figure out how to fund it too, because the school committee, doesn't really have a treasure chest of money to initiate a lawsuit either. And so even the school litigation, when that happened, that was the town of North Reading that brought the lawsuit, not the school committee itself. So I think there'd be a number of different levels of issues for that. I mean, it'd be, the funding of it, whether our funding from the state would be impacted by the decision, whether we're in violation of union contracts in any way. So there's a lot of things we'd have to look at if we got to that point.
But would they actually threaten our funding? Is that one of the mechanisms they use for if we don't follow along with what they do?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
In a general hypothetical sense, yes.
Yes, that would be something that would potentially be at issue.
Okay.
Okay. Appreciate the comments. Any other comments, thoughts, public comments? And again, this is not posted on about a debate here or whatever. If if the mandate comes down at the end of February, we can have a discussion, but right now all we have done so far is followed what DESE says. If the mandate goes away, we are not a town that has issued a second mandate. So if you're in a town where the school committee passed a mandate on top of it, then the school committee would have to change that in order to remove masks. That's how I would see it. Whereas we have not done that. All we have done is follow the guidance thus far. And so if the guidance changes, just like before when, the guidance changed after August, we didn't have to do anything further because we hadn't put any different, rule in place. Okay, thank you, everyone. Move on to the student report. We have Cassandra Fitz here, class of 2024. Cassandra, is it Cassandra or Cassandra?
It's Cassandra.
Cassandra, okay. Welcome.
So I was just going to briefly go over some of the stuff that's happened at the school. Not really much has changed since the last meeting, so it's going to be a lot of repeat stuff. Last week we had midterms, so it was weighed at 5%. We worked on it the entire week, and they're all complete now. As far as I'm aware, most of the students have been fairly happy with how that went, because there was a lot of anticipation and it wasn't really that bad. today was the first day of quarter 3 or the second semester, so it's the new marking period. Course selection has recently been, it hasn't been opened yet, but the classes have been released so that we can start to make decisions regarding what classes we want to take in the future. For the arts, there's nothing going on at the moment. They're all just preparing for future stuff. The band, Maskers, and Notorious all have things, I believe, coming up in April, but nothing at the moment. For athletics, the basketball team is playing at TD Garden on Sunday, and some track members qualified for nationals. Our DECA club, which is Future Business Leaders of America, is doing fundraising by selling chocolates, and this week from Thursday to Sunday, our Model UN team is attending Harvard Model UN. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments, anyone? Janine?
Hi. Cassandra, I believe it's the first time I've seen you before, right?
I've been here once before, I think in October.
I might have missed that meeting. Anyway, wonderful job. Just a couple of questions. Who is North Reading playing at the TD Center?
I am not sure on that. I'd have to check. I'm sorry.
That's fine. And how was oh my goodness, the one that's going to Boston?
Model UN?
Yes, thank you. My goodness, the things just pop out of my head. Are they excited? And what country did they end up getting? Do you know?
This one I can't answer because I'm on the team. So, so I think all of us are pretty excited. We're representing Ecuador. So it's a 4-day conference. We stay there and we basically just debate and interact with people who've come there from basically all over the world. It's run by Harvard, but it's in Boston. It's not at Harvard.
Good. All right. Well, congratulations and good luck.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? And we have an Ecuador trip coming up too.
Costa Rica, I think.
Oh, it's Costa Rica and then,
Is that right?
Want to go?
No, it,
No,
I think it
it's
had to go to
Ecuador.
Costa Rica and it's been changed to.
it's Ecuador now. I think last.
Ecuador is the one trip that they presented to us, and then Costa
last
Rica
one.
is the other, for next year.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, last meeting, I think, so. Interesting.
The Spanish immersion one.
The immersion one, yeah. The Ecuador, yeah.
Yes, we're going there. Okay. Thank you, Cassandra. As always, you're welcome to stay on as long as you want, or drop off if you have other things to do, so. Okay,
Thank you.
yes, so we're gonna jump around just a little bit because when people come to the school committee for approvals of things, we try to get to them quickly so they can then leave afterwards. So we're gonna jump to, we have a proposal for the North Reading baseball, an overnight trip proposal. I don't know, I think we have Coach Archibald. All right. Archibald, is that how we say it, Eric?
Close enough. Archambault.
Okay, you can tell from the
I get it
committee
wrong
here.
half the time anyway.
I'm very bad at pronouncing any names, just ask Chris on my committee,
All right,
so.
Mr. Bouclé.
Go ahead, sir.
All good. Yeah, so I'm just here to talk about hopefully get approval for a team trip to go play a game at Doubleday Field in Cooperstown. This is something we did the prior year before COVID hit, so 2019. I remember talking to a bunch of the seniors when our season got canceled of 2020, and you kind of ask them you ask them about their favorite memories of the baseball and high school in general, and pretty much all of them mentioned the Cooperstown trip as a awesome experience for them. So the way it works is we leave on the plan would be to leave Saturday morning on April 30th. We stay over one night. We would play Bedford High School at 1:30 p.m. at Doubleday Field. We did reserve that. We could obviously cancel that if it's not approved, but we did reserve that time just because you have to get that stuff in so far ahead of time. So the game would be at 1:30, and then we'd come home that night. So it'd be a weekend trip. We did think about from a COVID standpoint. We in 2019 we did 4 people to a room for finances. We would do just 2 people to a room, so everyone would have their own bed accordingly, and that's pretty much. I can answer any questions if you guys have them or whatever.
Excellent. Questions? Thoughts?
How long a trip is it?
It's just one night overnight. So we leave.
I'm sorry,
We
how-
leave a Saturday morning. We leave Saturday morning. We stay over. We usually do like a team dinner. We go like bowling and do a couple fun things out there. Play the game. We tour the Hall of Fame on Sunday morning. Play the game on Sunday at 1, and then we get home by hopefully like 8 or 9 p.m. On Sunday night.
And how long a drive is it?
It's about 4 hours and 15 minutes or so. So
Longer.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a long weekend. We rent a coach bus for it. The kids usually sleep a little bit on the way home, but they're usually pretty excited on the way out there. So it's a little similar in a sense to the old Washington D.C. trip that would go on in 8th grade in terms of like the bonding and that bus ride together and all that stuff. So.
I remember I was on that trip with you, I think.
Yeah. Yep, we were way back then. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Well, as a native of upstate New York, I appreciate the trip, but
Yeah.
only question I have, which is not really related to this, but you said you have to reserve well in advance. Is this just any teams can organize a game and rent that field, or is this like a tournament or something?
Yeah, no, any team can, but they do. But tournaments try to reserve like week blocks at a time. So, and they only use actual mail. They don't do any online reservation. It's tough dealing with them. So you have to. She was like, right when you get it, the day you get it, turn it around because we just come, first serve. So we gave a list of the dates that I knew worked for us, worked for Bedford, who we traveled there with. We don't go with them, but we play it, but we see them out there. And so that day was able to work out for us.
Excellent. Sounds like a great trip to me. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the North Reading baseball overnight trip to Cooperstown.
I move to approve the trip to Cooperstown.
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much, Coach.
We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Of course. We already heard from Cassandra about the DECA going on to some, winning some awards. So now we have a presentation on the trip proposal to go to, where is this? This is in Boston as well. So who is here for DECA?
It is. It's really just, I'm just going to follow up with you on behalf of Ms. Pierce, who's unable to be here tonight. She's the
Okay.
advisor. We've had some of our administrators also involved, Mr. LaPrette and Dr. Downs, I believe, were judges earlier in the year, which is great. I know Mr. LaPrette's been very involved with that. So the students have completed individual events, and now there was a competition which involved an online test that they took at school, as well as a role-playing scenario, and they presented to the judges in December. So the combined test scores and the role-play scores, they were placed against competitors from other schools, and the top 5 in each event moves on to states. So she makes an analogy to like a track meet or a swim meet. So this competition will be handled in the same way. Not everyone makes it to the state conference, but Jenna Mahoney, Owen Delano, Maher Magudo, Jason Lord, and Alan Raleigh have all made it to that level. So this is in March. It's in person, March 10th to 12th. And they would be requesting to stay either at the Marriott Copley or the Sheraton Boston. The sections themselves are held at the Heinz Convention Center or in the Marriott Copley. And so essentially they're looking for, there's all sorts of, COVID restrictions and precautions in place. They will need to follow the mask mandate that's in Boston. And so we feel comfortable that everyone will be able to comply with those rules and do this safely. But because it's an overnight trip, they wanted to bring this forward for request. So this again is in March 10th to 12th. And it's not virtual, it's all in person.
Okay. Any questions? My only question was, there's 8 people that, so my understanding is there's 8 people that have qualified.
Right.
And there's 5 of them that are planning to go. The other 3 just weren't able to go, didn't want to go.
Right.
Okay. So all 8 of them have qualified for it. And how does that compare to in the past? I mean, it's 8, seems like that's a good number.
I would think so.
Do you have any idea, Dr. Daly? Like, is this the first time this has come
I
up?
was just
I
gonna
think
say,
they've
I
done
don't
it a couple of
recall ever
times
having
at this level.
Okay. Have we had 8 people make it?
Yeah, it's a great question.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Seems like
I'm
a
not
high
sure
number.
about that
Okay.
number, but
I'm not
I would definitely research that, yeah.
No, again, I was just curious. You don't have to waste your time on it. I was just curious, so, okay. So if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to approve the DECA overnight trip.
I move that we approve the DECA overnight trip.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, why don't we go back, so the rest, we can get to the calendar later on, there's nobody here to present that. But I will go back to the top of the order here, and on the agenda, number 1 for continued business, we have the COVID-19 update. So Dr. Daly, and Mr. Connolly, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Sure, thank you so much. So essentially, the few main things I just wanted to speak to tonight that are primary that I've shared out. The number 1 being I guess I'll share the vaccination threshold since we've talked about that. Sort of the updated numbers. As you recall, the formula combines all the staff and all the students in a building in order to meet those thresholds. So if we were to meet 80% of a combined staff and student, we would be able to apply for a waiver. The number, we are currently, for the middle high school, we are at 75%. The Batchelder, 59%. For the Hood, 56%. For the Little, 65%. So none of those are quite at the 80%. The middle high school is getting close, but they've somewhat plateaued. We're not seeing a lot of movement at that level at this time, but what I would suggest is that if we hit that 80%, I would bring that forward as a waiver. I think that's something that we certainly would explore. I think, at that point, you've demonstrated that. And so when I do get that question from some parents, how come some other towns are starting to lift the mask mandate or that? And that's really why, because they've hit that threshold in town. And we're in a slightly different position because we are a combined middle high school. So obviously the high school with the older students being able to get vaccinated first, many high schools hit those numbers before. But like many other combined middle high schools, you've got different levels. Our 6th graders and some of the 7th graders weren't even able to do it until later in November. So it's been a little bit different and slower. So I don't know if you have any questions about that piece of it.
I mean, I would just clarify that we clarified this earlier this year or last year when this came out. We clarified with the state that it was you couldn't do high school different than middle school. It was a combined building.
Yep.
So that was the clarification, which is why we're talking about the buildings.
Yeah, I called today and clarified it again today that it has been denied for other districts that have tried to separate middle and high when it's a combined.
Yep.
And from if you follow the logic of this, it's, the shared spaces, you've got students and staff that are using the same spaces in cafeterias, DLL, media center, and the like. And so they want to see that number at 80% for everyone, and that's the number they've held to. So,
Okay.
so again, if that were to change, I would bring that forward as a proposal. And as we mentioned earlier, there are some slight changes there to the requirement. I know there were some concerns about people that the mask could only come off for those that were vaccinated, and that is now a strong recommendation versus a requirement for the unvaccinated. So I think that certainly helps some of those concerns that we've heard as well. The other major announcement I think that I've shared out is about the contact tracing. I've spoken a few times about that in the past and what we've done. The numbers, as I've been reporting out fairly regularly, have been very high. We've had more people now quite by almost 100, but from December 23rd until now than we had through the entire pandemic. So I know it's numbers and it's counts, and there's other ways to look at those numbers, but just in pure numbers, we've had a lot of positives in those times. So just the pure tracking and tracing of our staff and students became exhaustive, and also from a public health standpoint, we made the decision with our principals and nurses that instead of telling people 7 times a day that someone in each one of your classes may have been a close contact, monitor your symptoms, everybody was told basically in the district that if you are experiencing any symptoms, it could be COVID, you were very likely exposed to someone just based on the numbers. And so that's sort of the same messaging that we're seeing from the town, from the state. They've discontinued the contact tracing. So what they have offered us at the Department of Education is a change in our testing procedures. This also couples with the governor securing 26 million, I believe it's 26 million tests, that they have given us the option to do an at-home testing program. So this program was shared with staff first. It's staggered. I will be sharing that with students probably tomorrow, the option to join this at-home testing program. We will still continue to do symptomatic testing. If anyone has symptoms and they've given their consent, they can do the symptomatic testing at the nurse's office. We will also continue with pool testing. That's available again for anyone that gives consent. We do pool testing Monday, and now it's going to be just Monday and Tuesday for the pool testing at the middle school, high school, and the batch, and then Hood and Little is on Monday. On Thursdays, we will do the at-home testing. This one is more of an opt-in. It's not a consent-based program because it's completely optional for people to do the tests as a part of the program. People do not receive the tests at home and stockpile them. They're not to be used for anyone other than the intended person and for the intended purpose, which is a weekly test. So the idea is we're not contact tracing, we're not finding out, we're not notifying people that you may have been a contact. If you develop symptoms, you would still go to the nurse, but everybody would be tested at least weekly on the Thursdays with an at-home test, and they would self-report to the school if they're positive, and we would be able to give them support and advice. And so that program is sustained through, at least through April, if people choose to opt in. So we've sort of got the ball rolling on that and it moves forward, but effective as soon as we receive those tests and begin that process, we would stop the contact tracing process, which I think the nurses and everyone is ready for. I think we're moving into a new phase of this pandemic, more of endemic and more of trying to live with this as something like that we would live with other seasonal flu or whatnot. So I'm open to any questions or
Questions, thoughts,
Art?
comments? And I would just say, I think it's a good next step. I mean, the contact tracing with wearing out our staff, at some point in time, it has to stop. I mean, I remember when COVID began, and it's like we sent an email to the entire district when there was one positive case.
Yep.
You know, then we went away from that because it got too much. And I mean, I have a son who's in the 5th grade, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say we've gotten 5 emails since Christmas that there's been, you know, somebody in his room as a close contact. And so, you know, again, we have to stop wearing out our nurses. And I think that's the next logical step, is to focus on the people that are sick and let our nurses, you know, do that rather than following up with, you know, again, we have hundreds of cases. You have to prioritize the people that, you know, need the actual, you know, nurse to help and test and do that. So I think it's a good next step. And
I will say on the other end of the spectrum, there are some students that are very concerned about if they're a close contact, and the nurses have a discretion to continue to share information as needed with anyone that's in that situation. And so I'm sure that's happening, and I've talked to some parents that have had that concern, but this is really something as we move forward now, it's a shift with the public health process. And as I mentioned, it was, since the contact tracing had stopped at the state level and at the local level, a lot had fallen onto the nurses. So those first couple of weeks back was just really overwhelming. We certainly got good support from the town and from the town public health nurse, but it's welcomed by our nurses to move in this new direction.
okay, thank you for the update. Okay, anything else on?
Michael, were there any other points or questions or anything with regard to COVID-19?
No, Dr. Daly. I think operationally, I think the district continues to kind of roll forward. The only update I would provide tonight, and that's somewhat related because we've spoken about transportation and food service management and those types of things in the past on this agenda item, is that we have continued to sort of communicate and kind of market the fact that the late bus at the middle school that was added this year is available. And coming back from the winter break, we have seen an increase in the student participation in the late bus, which is a positive thing. I know the numbers were low for a good portion of the first half of the school year. So I think we're up to like 25 students that are now signed up and enrolled and taking part, and there's a chance that we'll try to continue to increase those numbers. So there's definitely interest there, which is encouraging. And then, overall, I think other operationally, we continue to just be rolling along fairly well. There continues to be good participation in the food service program, above 50% on a daily basis, which is great. So kind of right now, we're sort of waiting to see what the state might do for next year in terms of whether or not they'll continue to be kind of universal, free breakfast and lunch. So we think that decision may be coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll continue to monitor to that situation. But everything else seems to be moving along pretty smoothly.
I do have one question for Mr. Connolly and one comment. The comment first is, I just want to point out that last year when we were doing the budget, we really prioritized getting building-based subs. And I know that some districts didn't do that. I mean, my brother is in a district where they have tried not to do that because it was more expensive. And I just think it was by far the right thing to do. And I think we need to continue that. I think it's probably better educationally to have the same people there over and over again. And, I think with the number of people being out, I think it's really important that we have 2 in every building, so there's 10 subs to begin every day. I just think that's a critical thing to point out because a lot of schools are really struggling to have substitutes, and I'm not saying we're not struggling, but it's still, I just think it was a really good thing to do, and I hope that I know we're starting the budget process again. I hope that we continue that for next year as well. And then the question would be, I know that with the shortages or with people being sick, I know that my son has said that he's had a different bus driver. How are we doing with bus drivers? I mean, have a lot of bus drivers been out too, and have we been able to cover all the routes?
So great question. I appreciate the comment on number one on the building subs. I think that was certainly a good decision. That's kind of one of those things that in some ways we'd always talked about it as a district, and I think with the pandemic, it sort of accelerated that decision and our ability to kind of make that happen. And it's certainly one thing that we've all kind of liked and embraced from our experience last year and maintained it this year. And I think the feedback educationally with the principals has been very positive. So we have certainly plan to continue that as we look to budget for fiscal 23 into the future. And I think it, from an operational standpoint and educationally, and certainly it's worked out well. So I appreciate the comment. Secondly, on the I think certainly coming back from the break with the numbers being what they were, what they've been over the last few weeks, kind of since the holiday season, I think we did struggle a little bit over the first maybe 7 to 10 days back from winter break. There were some drivers that were out. So fortunately, we have not been in a situation that I will say other districts have been in where we've had to kind of double run routes or cancel a run altogether. We've had the drivers, but in some cases it has not been the regular driver. So there were 2 particular routes that for about a couple weeks there, coming back from winter break, did have a substitute driver, and drivers that were not even kind of regular go-to spares. They've never had driven the route before. So I know there was a couple of routes that struggled a little bit for a few days coming back from break. We think we have that stabilized. Some of the regular drivers have now returned, and it's been a little bit more smooth as of late. So the fortunate thing is that we've had the drivers. The company's been able to come through. In some cases, the leadership of the company is driving, vice presidents and presidents, but it hasn't always been the smoothest thing, but we've kind of figured it out, and we have not had to cancel a run. So I see that getting much better there's evidence of that situation being better, as well as when you look at the attendance rates and the fill rates from the substitute standpoint, that's all been better over the last 4 or 5 days as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would just commend North Suburban because I know it's a new contract and new routes, but I mean, I haven't had anybody reaching out, to complain about things. I mean, here and there I've heard of somebody, getting skipped or whatever, and they've had to go back with a substitute driver. But I mean, the other thing is with the extreme cold we've had a couple of mornings. I remember in years past we sometimes had, instances where the buses wouldn't start, and so I think it's just really good that North Suburban's been a great partner with us, and it's nice that we got all new buses, so we haven't run into the same issues. At least as far as I know of. Maybe 3 buses didn't start last week.
The one comment I will say while I have the opportunity, and I'm hoping to have more information on this coming forward, is we have partnered with a GPS communication firm that's kind of a new company, it's kind of a startup called BusRight. North Suburban, and this is like our year 2 of a trial. It kind of got slowed down a little bit with COVID and the bus routes and the hybrid model last year. But North Suburban, fortunately, when we changed contracts, they really embraced this GPS and bus communication company. And I think things have, because they've embraced it and they've put all of their routes into the system, and I think that has helped. When there is a substitute driver, things have gone more smooth than they may have gone in the past, although it doesn't mean that technology does break down. And it's sometimes the GPS system does kind of start turning the substitute driver around. That has happened. That was the case coming back from break on a particular day. But I think overall, as we've worked out some of the bugs of that system over the last 4 or 5 months, it has been a positive thing, and we're going to continue to kind of pilot this system and hope to continue to have it only improve our routing system, our efficiencies. And then the next step of that, which we hope to kind of roll out in the very near future, it's been a little delayed, would be the parent app communication of that system. So you mentioned very cold mornings. So we hope in the very near future, at least from a pilot perspective, to be able to provide those parents that desire it the ability to kind of have an app that tells them when that, what the ETA of their child's bus is at the bus stop. So that's something we're piloting. We're trying to get it right, but we hope to be able to make that available in the near future. It's something that we've been working on, believe it or not, for a couple of years.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Thank you very much. Oh, Dr. Dilly?
I just had one note to say that the vaccination clinics, I wanted to say, we are not hosting any future ones at the school. They will be, we are combined now with the effort that's being hosted in town. So the next one is at the end of the month. So the town ones that are being run would be the ones that would be for the school.
Okay. Thank you all. Sorry, my son's getting out and texting me, so I'm texting my wife to say go get him. NRPS 2025 updates.
Sure. So just a couple. I know it's almost 2025. I just wanted to provide a few updates to you tonight.
Feels like it.
We're going to share in more detail coming up, but just sort of to give you the latest of what we did. We brought our leadership team together again. We focused on the student voice aspect of this. We were actually in this room just last week, and we really looked at that concept of what does it mean to increase student voice. And I think there's an aspect of this that also includes, hearing from staff, hearing from the community, informing our decisions, similar to what Mr. LaPrette presented last week, where, a decision is to be made at the high school around grades and and AP selection, taking into the account multiple stakeholders, right? So he's talking to teachers, but also talking to administrators, but certainly hearing from students themselves. But we looked through it through several different lenses, obviously of our big rocks of equity and student services and teaching and learning. What does it look like for student voice in terms of special education, in terms of setting goals, in terms of courses and course creation and curriculum that they may encounter, and just, to think about what that looks like for us in a 5-year vision. There are definitely challenges that are presented, when we start taking the student input into account. But, that's something we're going to explore. And I know that we've discussed a little bit here about even the role of the student rep to the school committee. I think we saw more of a role from Sophia last time, staying around. The true design of that model is to have a non-voting member of a committee, and that's something that we can think about moving forward. I don't know that, might we lose some of the students that have done it? I'm not sure, but I think, I'm involved in a committee for the competency determination, and one of the students who's a part of the elementary and secondary board of education at the state level, who has a student member, has been a part of that committee, and it's just such a great voice and a great perspective to have at the table for all issues, and not just, we certainly value the student report and what we get from that, but that true role of being a member of the committee is something we can explore. So those are just some of the updates that we're working on there. Certainly, as we are in the budget process, we're very much involved with positions and programs that are aligned to NRPS 2025. So, but any questions at this point? I will have more to share in the next couple of meetings.
Nope, not for me. It was definitely nice having, a fourth voice last week, at least with the student, the student rep, so.
Great. Okay.
Okay. So, moving on, that's continued business. Back to new business, we have the 2022-2023 school calendar.
Great, thank you. Just the update that was made, we did confirm that the January 2nd, I'm sorry, the 4th is the holiday observed. I'm sorry, the 2nd.
The 2nd.
The 2nd is the holiday observed. But we did have some leeway to do the 23rd as a half day. As a courtesy, we always check with the teachers union on their opinion of that, and they're in support of this idea, coming to school for the half day on the 23rd, which would then allow us to back up that last day in June. So I think there are, as we noted at the last meeting, there are some changes to the calendar from the last time we did this, whenever these holidays fell on these same days. And we believe that we would be able to make it work. The next week, we have to have some consideration of the holidays that our year-round employees get and make sure that they have them in, make sure that the building is open in order to do payroll. But we feel that we can make all that work with the half day on the 23rd. And so that's what the calendar would look like. So very similar to what you saw in the final, but some notes about those days. Any thoughts or questions?
I appreciate you looking at it. I think I like it more.
Yeah, and just in case you guys weren't here, it was our last meeting that we talked about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
You originally had the 23rd as an off day.
Complete day off, yep. Right,
Okay, and
similar
then-
to this year.
Yeah, and so the other thing that impacted that was the addition of the Juneteenth holiday that just was making things really tight at the end of the month, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with those considerations in mind, I also checked other local districts to see what they were doing, and there were several that were doing the half day on that day, so I thought that would be a good addition. So.
I just think anything we can do to not, trickle into that very last week of June, trying to end the week before. So if, 5 snow days gets us to the 26th, which means 4 or less that we end by the second to last week in June, I think would be a better approach. So I'm glad you looked at that, so thank you. Okay.
You want to fully just break through that calendar?
Yeah, is there any other comments or questions on the calendar? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school year calendar. Okay, moved by Janine, second by Diana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, and we have a couple of collaborative reports. Theme to begin with, or two together? Or?
Sure. I think we may present them somewhat together.
Yeah.
The number of students that we actually have currently in the programs is fairly low. There's a couple of students basically in each program at the moment. But having the options and the opportunities for these programs that are substantially lower than the cost if we were to do a different program, because we have the member rate at SEAM and at North Shore. And, in the instances where we have a student who is we're not able to find that most appropriate setting in our district, to be able to have these options for us is invaluable for the cost of the tuition. In addition, these collaboratives offer many other supports for us as well. We have many job alikes, including superintendents, assistant superintendents, English second language, so many different groups. We have our Title III grant. We do collaboratively through SEAM. We also have the shared positions of the EL coach and the equity, diversity, inclusion coordinator. So, as it mentions here in your packet, I am, by regulation, I am on the board of directors for both groups. They are really, really well-run, informative. The executive directors and the financial directors do a fantastic job. Have had all the challenges that we've had over the last year with staffing and with hybrid, and have seen so much resilience and just excellent programming in both of these collaboratives. So what you're seeing is just really the annual report from the prior year, and part of the process is, for us as member districts to have it presented to the bank. There's no need for further action, but it's just more of a presentation and an overview.
Thanks very much. Skim through. I don't know if anybody had any questions about either report.
Not questions, but comments.
Or comments. Go ahead.
It was really nice to see, and there's a better word, but just what they do for the students, and the opportunities that they give them, and working with them and stuff. So it was really nice to read through it and see everything that they do offer. So.
Okay.
I just had a quick question, not about the reports, but is 2 per the program, is that like a low for us, a recent low?
It is. It's a little bit lower at the moment. It is. We have, but it's funny. It's just, every day there's new things that come up, and it's like, oh, where can we go? What programs do we have available? So things can change very quickly. So that is lower than it's been. And sometimes it might shift. We might have more SEAM or more North Shore. It kind of goes back and forth. But it really depends on the particular programs that they offer. And they're very specialized and incredibly powerful to visit. I've been able to visit some of the programs at the various schools and see some of the programs and how amazing they are for the students.
And I would certainly, I think they're great programs, and we certainly should continue. I'm not questioning whether we should continue to be a part of it. I think it speaks to, your effort, our effort over the years of trying to work to accommodate students in the district if possible.
Yes.
It's obviously been successful.
I think that's the right call out. I think it could be that they're going to some other out of district placements, but we also know from the budget discussions that a lot of students are staying in district. And I know that I've asked Mr. Connolly in the past about whether it makes sense with only one student, but it seems like even with a single student there, being a member district is well worth the cost and the savings. So don't even have to bother Mr. Connolly on that question again. So.
I can mention too that the contractual services also. I don't think I mentioned that. I mean, there are opportunities to bring in people sometimes. So we keep the student in district, but tutorial services or other supports and services, professional development as well. So they're really great to be a part of the program.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on, I think we're making record pace here. Routine matters. We have the minutes. Now, I know Janine wasn't here, so I don't know if Rich wants theirs, Chris?
I'll go ahead.
I did read.
I move that the committee vote to approve the executive session minutes from the January 10th, 2022 meeting.
I second. Okay. So we'll do all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstentions?
Even though I wasn't there, I can still vote to approve,
Okay,
correct?
you can, but
I read the minutes, there doesn't seem to be anything amiss, so I'm a yes.
I usually abstain, but you can do whatever you'd like.
Okay.
In Brianna. Before, are you abstaining or voting in favor?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. So Janine's in favor of
I'm
it?
throwing my hat in the ring, I'm in favor.
Okay, so it passes 4-0 with one abstention. Okay.
I move that we, committee vote to approve the meetings from the regular session of the January 10th, 2022 meeting. I second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Is that a approval for you again?
It is,
Okay.
I'm throwing my hat in the ring.
There we go. Staffing updates, Dr. Daly? Oh, budget update, I skipped over. None of the time. Bids and donations.
Yes, I believe there is one. There it is. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $2,000 from the class of 2021. Jacqueline Ramo, treasurer, and Nesrin Ordil, class president, to assist with general school improvements at the high school. A second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
So
Actually,
I guess this is the question, but not,
okay, go ahead.
was that separate from the usual, will contribute a little bit to the sign thing that usually the outgoing classes do, or? You know,
I can address that. So it wasn't specifically notated that it had to go towards the sign, although I think it provides the flexibility. If that is needed, we could do that. We do actually have an update on the sign. We've actually purchased the sign. So we got between funding between the high school gifts as well as some funding available at the middle school. We were able to make purchase of the sign. It's actually due to be received at the end of February. So we kind of anxiously awaiting the delivery of the sign. We are working on an installation contract now with a contractor. And one thing I was considering in discussions with Mr. LaPrette, of course, would be that we're waiting for the proposal for that installation. This donation could help pay for the installation of the sign. But the sign has been purchased.
Excellent. I assume it'll be stored in Dr. Daly's office until it's installed. With actually one follow-up question also on the class gifts. I think was the last meeting or 2 meetings ago when we went over the balances, and I know that Mr. Connolly, I know you were going to look at whether the senior class that was so low and the juniors and sophomores were higher than the senior class. Do you remember that discussion when we looked at the balances in the different accounts? Did you ever look at, was there anything in particular that was making it lower or not, or
just timing?
Or just, can you remember timing?
I believe it was just the timing. I'm actually preparing the next quarter's report.
Okay, that's fine.
This week, and everything looked like it kind of caught up. So everything looked good. So there wasn't that situation that existed.
Okay. Thank you. I know we were going to also try to call up Chartwell's. I know Chartwell's gave us a nice little some treats tonight, so thank you to Chartwell. Dr. Daly, do you want to?
Yeah, I was going to speak. I can just say to Chartwell's, a message here from Anna McGovern and Chartwell's is that January is National School Board Recognition Month. And given the past few years have been anything but ordinary, so Chartwell's and North Reading Food Service want to extend a special thank you and reinforce how much we appreciate the heart and soul you put into our student, staff, and community. And thank you for helping support us to serve up happy and healthy every day. They do a really fantastic job. We actually just had a recent visit from another community, I believe, Michael, that wanted to see our facilities. You can see some great facilities and serving options that are here from Chartwell's, that they've included a few visuals in our room, and they wanted to give a thank you to the school board.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, thank you to each of you in honor of Recognition Month for the school board. Certainly well deserved. So the community is certainly very lucky to have the dedication and the commitment for all 5 of you. So enjoy the treat from Chartwell's, and we certainly appreciate Ms. McGovern and Chartwell's for that special recognition as well, and the treat. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, although I do feel as though we ought to be buying them.
Okay, moving on, subcommittee update. Finance planning team did not meet, that got postponed till the end of the month. Evaluation subcommittee, Chris or Janine?
Yeah, we had a meeting, it's a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember the details. It was 5 hours ago. So, next session, we'd like to start to check in, both about the school committee goals as well as our individual goals that we had talked about over the course of the summer. Now, we haven't really talked about those since the summer. So what we were thinking was if anybody is interested and willing to share on their experiences in this upcoming meeting in 2 weeks, by all means, great. And if you feel like you need a little bit more time to kind of get things lined up, then we can hold up. Am I misremembering?
Oh, no, I said I need more time to get my stuff. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if we should decide that now.
We could put them up,
the
too.
agenda, yeah.
You can put me on next time if you want.
Yeah,
Okay,
I could probably speak to my goals next time.
And
I'm
I'm
done,
happy
but I
to
was just
too.
gonna.
Yeah. It's so we don't need to divide, and it's not, I just don't want people to feel like,
Yeah.
oh man, you know.
We don't have solar
We
panels
haven't
on
talked
the
about
roof
it.
yet, so nothing's done.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's yeah, that was the deal. Thank you.
thank you.
Looking at it as
Yep.
a standing agenda item possibly for a couple of meetings, is that the idea? Just
Sure.
the updates? Great.
Yeah, we can split them up.
And I can send out the goals and then any kind of documents or templates we want eventually. I think it's just more of an informal presentation first,
Yeah.
and then we'll go, since it's an informal, yeah, the goals are informal.
Yeah. Okay, upcoming meetings. Budget and Finance Subcommittee is having our first meeting of the year, January 27th. It's on my calendar. Finance Planning Team is now January 28th, and Fine Arts Subcommittee is March 9th. March 9th? It's way out, isn't it? All right. Administrative.
We're doing for a year.
Yeah. Okay. Administrative report, Dr. Daly?
So I was going to share about Chartwell. I just wanted to share, this is somewhat correspondence, but I'll just pass around. Barbara Staff stopped by today just to give a thank you, basically, a nice note to the committee. It was really just nicely presented, so I thought I would share it.
Yeah.
I appreciated her comments at the last meeting because she really was personalizing it towards the school committee. And
I think it's Friday, there's an open house for her?
There is a community open house, I believe 10 to 12 at the Hillview, and that was in the newspaper as well.
And Dr. Daly told us all that he got invited to a lunch, so.
Yeah, I think that was open if you wanted to go. And just as another note, I've shared out I sent out another reminder today just about the special election for the vocational school. For anyone listening here, if they didn't get my message, just, there's a lot of information in that email, and the transcript's done a great job of covering this as well. I believe the building has not been updated much since the late 60s when it was built. And this special election, every vote counts. They're going to look at all the 12-member communities and tally up all the votes. So North Reading unanimously supported this in town meeting, and so it's now time because I believe there were 2 communities that did not support that, so then it needs to go to the special election. So just a reminder to everyone to get out and vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think North Reading has been very supportive of school project overall in the past, and so I don't anticipate there being any difference here, but the problem is if it passes 100 to 0, it's not nearly as good as passing 500 to 100, so got to get people out.
And just to update on Ms. Embriano's question, the boys are playing Amesbury at the Garden.
Thank you.
They're playing who?
Yeah, I confirmed that with Mr. Johnson.
Amesbury? Is it just like a random game there, or is it a tournament, or a?
It's a game that's just being hosted at the Garden. Yeah. So I think Mr. Johnson said to me a little while ago that it's, he doesn't know that we've ever had a game at Gillette and the Garden in the same year.
I was just going to say.
Pretty exciting, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity to support North Reading.
Well, let's say it can't lose to Amesbury. You can't lose to Amesbury. We all know why.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more correspondence or? Okay. Future business, February 7th, we have a meeting at 6:30 p.m. March 7th, we have a meeting at 6:30 p.m. as well. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn. Second.
Second by one of you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Buckley.